So let me go ahead and get started with introductions, just in case you haven't been to one of our workshops yet. We'll go ahead and introduce the Grad Slam team. My name is Ivy Epen, and I am the Director of Operations and External Relations here at the Division of Graduate Education, and excited to have you here with us today. And we'll introduce the rest of the team really quickly. Iris, why don't you go next?
Hello, everyone. My name is Iris Puvo. I'm one of the events and engagement specialists here, and again, very excited to be here. And I'll pass it on over to Vanya.
Thank you, Iris. Hello, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes, okay. I'm Vanya Shalini. I'm the Assistant Director for Strategic Communications at the DGE. And thank you all for being here with us today. I'll pass it over to Amanda.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Amanda Nunez Galindo, and I am the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at UCLA. Very happy to have you all here, and I'll pass the mic over to Jean.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jean Mesa, Events and Operations Specialist in the Operations External Relations within UCLA's Division of Graduate Relations. Welcome, everyone.
Also, before I hand it over to David, I just want to go over some important dates and deadlines for you to take note of, in case you haven't heard these from me before. So the most important part being the registration deadline for the competition, which is coming up this Monday, January 27th. So that is the deadline to register for the competition. Now, in terms of other important deadlines to note, so we have a preliminary video submission round. And so in order to qualify for that round, not only do you have to register for the competition itself, you also need to register for one small group coaching session. And we have 5 dates starting next Monday. So you need to enroll in that and then submit your video on Monday, February 3rd by 3:59 p.m. So that is the first important, the next important date after the deadline, the registration deadline. So the video submission deadline is February 3rd. Now, from the video submission round, we will select our 20 semifinalists, and then our 20 semifinalists will compete in person, and you must compete in person on Thursday, February 27th at Kirchhoff Grand Salon. So we have 2 semifinal rounds, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And then from our semifinal rounds, we will select our 10 finalists who will compete in our final event on Wednesday, March 12th at the Grand Horizon Ballroom in Covell Commons. And if you're not familiar with that building, that's located by the residence halls up on the hill. So that's on Wednesday, March 12th. If you're thinking positively. So keep those dates in mind and write them down on your calendar. You can also find all of these dates on our website. Vanya, if you can drop it in the chat, that would be great. Or Amanda, you can find all of those dates on our Grad Slam page at on our website. Also, if you have any questions whatsoever about the competition itself, you can send us an email to askgrad@grad.ucla.edu and put Grad Slam in the subject line so that we can respond to it right away if you have any questions. When you registered for Grad Slam, you should have gotten an email with the links to the small group confirmations or small group coaching sessions, I should say. So if you are intending to submit a video, again, you need to attend a small group coaching session next week. So if you haven't already done so, please sign up for a small group coaching session. And then the other important date that you need to take note of, if you're thinking very, very positively, is our campus champion will go on to compete in the UC-wide competition on April 29th up in Sacramento. So again, that's an in-person competition. So our campus champion will fly up there and compete in that. And I think those are the most important dates I wanted to touch on. And now I'd like to hand it off to David, who will be leading our workshop today.
Great, thank you, Ivy, and hello, everyone. Welcome to this presentation on basic presentation skills, and let me bring up the slides for you here as I introduce myself. I'm David Fuller, and I am a trainer with Campus Human Resources, Learning and Organizational Development. And I have been in learning and development, doing presentations, helping folks learn new things for the last many, many years, more than I like to count at this point, across a number of industries. And one of the things I can share with you just as we kick this off from that experience across multiple industries is the information I'm going to share with you today really applies across the board. It doesn't matter what your profession is, what your interests are, who your audience is, what their background is. This information is universal. And so I think I know you're going to find it helpful as you put your presentations together, as we think about how to have the information that you share resonate with an audience. That's the purpose of this today. It is an interactive group. We're going to an interactive session. We'll have a couple of breakout groups, trios, pairs. So be ready for that. This is to help you with these presentations. It's a workshop. I call it a workshop rather than a presentation because you're going to do a little bit of work. So when we think about presentations, it's often the case that you know a whole lot about the thing that you're going to be sharing with others, right? That's the reason you're doing the presentation. That's the easy part, sharing that information with people in a way that they'll be interested in it and that they'll learn from it. That's something else, right? We've got the information, but how do we get people to want to get it from us? There is a lot to being a good presenter, as you probably already know. And there's surely a wide range of experience, even just among the folks in this virtual room, right? We've got 5 people prepping for Grad Slam, considering it. Even among you 5, I'm sure there's a variety of experience. I want to take the time today just really to touch on 2 key areas that can have a meaningful impact for you. Some of this information may be new for you, some of it maybe not, but we're covering what we can in a small nutshell. So our 2 main topics today, first are how your audiences learn. Okay, how your audiences learn, and then what you can do to get your message received well. The concepts I'm going to share are big picture concepts, but they're all things that having a little bit of knowledge about can really help make a big impact on your presentations. And they're things I wish I had known much earlier in my career, so I'm always happy to share them with people because that's the feedback that I also get is, I wish I had known that long ago. While there's, I understand, a very high probability that you're here specifically because of Grad Slam, just recognize that these things, these concepts, these skills will apply to any presentations you do, any content you share going forward. So it's widely useful. Because the reality is we spend a lot of our professional lives sharing information. It's just the nature of work. And that applies whether it's white collar work, blue collar work, doesn't make a difference. It's easy to think about in a white collar context because PowerPoint presentations and slides and that kind of thing are so ubiquitous. Even in a blue collar workforce, sharing information in a way people need to understand it, will want to understand it, is really important. And I think about when I lived in North Hollywood, there was an auto shop not too far from me, just right down the street. One of the reasons I loved going to this auto shop, which is something most people don't say, I love the mechanic I have. They're like, I don't trust the mechanic I have. I loved this shop because I hadn't taught them these principles, but they naturally used the principles I'm going to share with you. They spoke with me in language I understood, in ways that were relevant to me. Hey, David, we know that you drive a short distance because you live just a couple miles away and you primarily work from home. So the thing we found doesn't really need to be fixed right away. Like you could wait a year or two, right? That's sharing information in a way that is relevant to your audience. So these principles are true no matter what kind of information you're sharing. So whatever your current, future career paths, doesn't make a difference. So to kick it off, what I want to introduce you to first, talk about that, is that the first things I'm going to share with you are grounded in what's called adult learning theory, right? So we're going to start with how you can refine your presentations to take advantage of how adults approach learning. And I talk about adults because most of what most of us think about when we think about how people learn comes from how we learned when we were in school, like in a K through 12 environment, right? Kindergarten through 12th grade. But there are some distinct differences between how kids learn, which is the science of pedagogy, right? And how adults learn, which is andragogy. So we're going to look at a couple of elements about what we know about how adults learn, and we'll talk about what to do with that information in order to help your presentations resonate with your audiences, Grad Slam and beyond. So one of the first things that we know from this research is that adult learners are independent, right? As adults, our self-concept is based on independence rather than dependence. The day-to-day elements of our lives are not controlled by teachers or parents. In our working adult lives, we're independent and making our own choices, right? So we usually don't have to sit and pay attention and learn because someone tells us it's required. We have agency over our lives and our learning. So what you need to do with that as a presenter is develop a need to know feeling in your audience about what you're going to share. You give people a view of the top of that mountain of the knowledge that you're going to share with them, and give them a reason to want to climb up there with you. This makes the content immediately relevant to them. I want you to help answer for your audience the question, what's in it for me? Right? As your audience is sitting there, they're thinking, what's in it for me? Make a case for the value of the content you're going to share as it relates to their lives. And as I mentioned, when we were younger in school, K through 12, we were there to learn whatever was served up to us. And we weren't really giving up anything else to be there because we really didn't have a choice but to be there. In our adult world, we're trading off something else for doing this, whatever this learning opportunity is. So most of us need to believe that it's going to be relevant to our lives before we agree to commit spending time on it, right? Too many presenters just jump right into the topic without making a case for why the audience should even pay attention. Ignoring that is a great way to turn your audience off right away, or at least make them struggle to stick with you. Another side to this is that as adult learners, we are goal-oriented. If I'm going to spend time learning X, then I want to get Y out of it. We're goal-oriented, which brings us to the next tip, which is to make your content, or at least part of it, problem-centered. If you make your content or part of it problem-centered, this can go a long way to helping reinforce for people how they can achieve a goal by learning what you have to teach them. For example, let's say you're doing a presentation on a set of previously lost sonnets by Shakespeare, right, that you were able to uncover through your research. Rather than just giving here are new sonnets written by Shakespeare that I uncovered kind of presentation, you could think about key decision points in your research process and spend some time walking your audience through those decision points and invite them to consider what path they would have taken with each key decision. That puts them in the seat of trying to solve the problem that you solved. This can even be done when you only have 1 to 3 minutes to share information, right? Grad Slam, your presentation window is like this. But these principles can even be done in those situations, and we'll think through how. So making something in a way, making your content in a way that helps walk people through that to make it problem-centered. This is an instance of where you could use an approach like imagine if you will. Okay, let's say your presentation is on a new way to test for a disease behind a particular kind of hearing loss in children, right? And your test costs 1/10 of what the current method costs. Making it problem-centered for an audience might sound something like, imagine you're the head of pediatrics at a major children's hospital, with budget cuts happening left and right. Your program on hearing loss detection and diagnosis is world-renowned, but your board of directors is set to scale it back due to cost. Okay, it seems you have 3 options in front of you, and then you list out the options in a way that it invites your audience to ponder which they'd choose. You don't have to get audience feedback on which they'd choose. You just set the scenario up. That helps make it problem-centered. Now, something else also, when watching presentations, many attendees revert back to their passive learner days from school, right? As a presenter, don't let that happen. Empower them to engage with your presentation, to explore the learning, to solve problems they have that what you're teaching can fix. Lead them to inquiry, right? Lead them to inquiry. Encourage them with ways to dig deeper on their own time. Maybe mention related topics or authors that they can look up on their own. Maybe you're offering web links that they can go to case studies, articles, whatever they might find interesting. You can mention things quickly, maybe commit to sending information out afterwards, or just give them a phrase to search online, right? A Google search of this phrase will give you more information on this, right? And ask questions along the way, even if there isn't time to get answers, like is the case with Grad Slam. Even if there isn't time to get answers, ask them to ponder the questions themselves, right? That is a way to engage an audience. At first pass, doing these suggestions with your own Grad Slam presentations might not require any major change if you're well into designing it. You might just need to add context or shift things a little bit. And I want to try this right now. Just as you think about your topic, I want to apply this concept of making your presentation problem-centered. So I want you to take 60 seconds right now. I'm going to give you 60 seconds to think of your Grad Slam project. Think of your presentation and jot down how you could make at least one element of your presentation problem-centered. And then I'm going to put you into, there's going to be a pair or a trio. I'm going to put you into pair or trio to chat about the possibilities just really quickly. But here's 60 seconds, going to get my stopwatch here to jot down how you could make some element of your Grad Slam presentation problem-centered. Okay, on your mark, get set, and go. All right. So now I'm going to open up the breakout room. Jennifer, Lisa, Naomi, you're in a trio there. What I'd like you to do is share with each other how you'll make some element of the presentation problem-centered. And if you couldn't think of anything, take the minute or so to share what the topic is and ask for your partner's thoughts on how you might be able to do that, okay? It's going to be a quick breakout room. It's just like 4 to 5 minutes. So it'll go really quickly. I'm not going to have you suffer in a breakout room forever and ever. So share that. I'll bring you back in about 4 minutes and we'll continue on with our next concept. What questions do you have before I open up the breakout room? Any? Okie doke. Here you go. And Ivy, you may want to pause the recording. All right, welcome back. Now, let's move forward here and talk about the next thing about how we approach new information as learners. We approach it through our experience. As adult learners, we've been around the block a time or two, right? We come to whatever presentation we're listening to, whatever class we're going to, we come to it with experience. And that experience is valuable to us. And in many cases, it helps make up our identity. Leveraging your audience members' past experience whenever possible is another thing that you can do to help your audience resonate more with your presentation. Ask how X, whatever your topic is, ask how X could apply in their own life. How knowing this thing might have made a difference in something from their past, or how it could make a difference from something in their future. Their experience is part of their self-identity. The more they can connect themselves to your content, the better. Help them also to see how their experience might negatively impact their view of what you have to say, right? This is a big one. What preconceptions might they have that will impact what they believe about what you're saying, right? That could impact how they perceive what you're sharing. If we can catch people in a contradiction between their existing perception of reality and what we're sharing with them, that can really catch their attention. Each of us brings our own world of experience and knowledge to the table. We want presenters to recognize it, to respect it, to cater to it, right? All too often, presenters fail at that. Right? They forget that we've all, as observers, as learners, been around the block a time or two. So when you can, involve that experience that your audience members have in your presentation. Ask them how they've used what you're presenting in their day-to-day experience. And again, you can ask that question even when you don't have time for people to respond out loud. Even just asking people to think about what their own answer to a question might be helps engage them in what you're talking about. Now, let's repeat this process, and we'll do it a little more quickly this time. Let's repeat the process of applying this new knowledge to our own presentations by looking at ways, excuse me, that you can connect your audience's own experience with what your Grad Slam presentation will be about, okay? Think of your audience, right? Think of your topic and take 60 seconds now to jot down thoughts about how you might be able to invite the audience to bring something of their own experience to what you're presenting. And I recognize as you think about the audience with Grad Slam, your audience is varied, right? You kind of almost don't know who's going to be sitting there, what their background is. So I'm not oblivious to that. I want you to take that into consideration. Okay, so here's 60 seconds. Answer for your Grad Slam topic, how you can invite the audience to bring something of their own experience, okay, into what you're presenting. 60 seconds on your mark, get set, go. Okay, about 30 seconds left, and then I'll put you back in your trio. Hey, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. All right, so I'm going to open up the breakout groups again, breakout group, and take this. I'll give you 3 minutes. It'll just be a minute each. Boom, 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 to share with each other what you might do to invite your audience to bring something of their own experience into what you're presenting. Okay, here you go. Zoom the read. Okie doke. And I think one person is stuck in the breakout room zone. Naomi's back. Jennifer's back. Although it says you're both. Oh, there it goes. Zoom. Okay, well, we will hope the third comes back from the breakout room zone. And I'll continue on here. So the third thing that I want to share with you about adult learning theory is that most of the time when we go out to learn something new as adults, it's not just for the joy of learning. There might be joy of learning in there, but it's not just for the joy of learning. Most of the time, we want to learn something new to do something with it now, right? Whatever that is. And in fact, I had someone in another time I was presenting this content say, that's totally not true, David. Like, I'm learning Italian right now just for fun. Right? Just for fun. And I challenged them. I'm like, oh, that's great. So you never ever plan to use it? And they said, well, I mean, like my wife and I we are going to go to Italy, and I'd like to be able to speak a little bit of Italian while I'm there. I'm like, well, there it is, right? Like it might not be now in this moment, but you're learning Italian for a purpose, right? So think about corporate training courses, right? Unless it's state mandated, like we have to do this to keep our jobs, the things we learn are for right now. You're in this workshop right now because you want to learn something to apply to your grad slam presentations. Grad school is another example. We don't just go to grad school for fun and spending money. We go to grad school to pick up important, valuable skills for the careers we want to use. So this is where it's especially good to know what your audience members could do with the information that you're going to share and make that clear for them. When they know that, they're much more eager to pay attention to what you have to teach them. And this can be harder with a general audience like the ones at Grad Slam presentations, right? Because it's people of all different backgrounds. Now, you could be cheeky and say something like, I'm going to make this relevant to you so that you can score me high on the rating sheet, right? But that's not really effective. A more practical tip is to use the imagine, if you will, approach that I mentioned earlier, right? Imagine you're an X looking for a way to do Y, right? Asking them to imagine themselves in a situation where what you are saying is relevant can help a general audience make that connection to your presentation of, oh, if I'm an X looking to do Y, what you're going to tell me is information I can use now. So I touched on this earlier, but when putting together a presentation, always really try to think about your audience members asking that question, what's in it for me? What can I do with this information? Address that right up front in your presentations, and you're likely to keep them all the way through. Now, for more information on these ideas that I just shared, you can Google adult learning theory, or you can Bing it, or whatever other web browsers are out there. But adult learning theory is the phrase to look for. And these were just a couple of core concepts to adult learning theory. There's much more to it that you may find helpful now and down the road. So now what I'd like to do is move on to one other key area I'd like you to be thinking about. Hand in hand with adult learning theory for engaging your audience is the idea of learning styles. ways to frame information and serve it up. Are there any cooks in the group? And if you don't have your camera on, you could just give me a thumbs up emoji. Anybody who likes to cook? And G group, Grad, you all can, okay, good. So for the cooks, let's say you make a delicious soup for your family or your friends. What do you serve it in? Maybe a soup tureen, right? Maybe a large bowl. If you're like me, you take the pan off the oven and put it on a trivet on the table and say, here's the ladle, help yourselves. Could you serve it from a pitcher? Could you serve it from a plate? Could you soak it up into a large sponge and squeeze it out into everyone's bowl? Like, all of these would work, but some work better than others. And the same is true with presenting information. There are often more ideal ways than others to frame information to help it be more easily understood, which in turn helps people resonate with it more. We're going to be diving into that. First, let's talk about the basics, which many of you may already know. When we talk about learning styles, we most frequently mean these three things that you see on the screen. Visual learning, when you learn something by seeing it or reading it. Auditory learning, when you learn something by hearing it. And kinesthetic learning, when you learn something by doing it or touching it. Some sort of physical motion involved. And as a side note, and for the graduate education team, some of you have heard this before, but I always have to add in, when I was looking for these clip arts, the ear just cracked me up because I'm like, okay, kind of an odd ear, but it comes with the set. But where have I seen this ear before? I know I have. Oh, I think I know. It is a Vulcan ear. No, wait, maybe it wasn't a Vulcan ear. Maybe it was an Elven ear. In any case, it's an ear, and there could be some research on cross-species application of learning styles in adult education, but that's a grad slam presentation for another day. No matter what, whether it's visual, auditory, or kinesthetic, people definitely feel like they have ways that they learn best. What's interesting, though, is that over the last decade or so, a little bit longer than that really, a lot of discussion and really good research has been taking place in the academic world, studies being done, being reviewed, as to how learning styles come into play and whether or not they're actually important. And now there's growing evidence that it doesn't actually help to match learning content to the delivery style of that learning content to any individual's preferred learning style. Because what the evidence is showing is that as individuals, we don't actually have a learning style in which we learn best, right? It's a myth. We definitely feel like we do. There's no question about that. But we don't when it comes to the reality of it. I'll leave that for academics to continue debating. But what we do know for sure, what doesn't have the same level of debate, and what I'd like you to take away from this, is that some subjects are better suited to particular learning styles. For example, geometry. If I had to teach you about rectangles and cubes and angles and polygons, how effectively could I teach that to you if I couldn't show it to you? Right? Again, no graphics involved. Could you learn geometry if it were audio only? Well, sure, but it would be a lot more difficult than if I could show it to you, right? Showing it is the best way for this content. Without that, it might be a struggle. What if I wanted to teach you to sing a particular song, but I could only teach you with words and pictures? Right? Again, could be done, but providing an auditory learning path would be much more helpful. So for your upcoming presentations, I really want you to think about how best to cover your topic through the learning style that suits it the most. I'm not saying have every learning style for every element of your content, right? That's kind of just too much. Just pay attention to which style best serves your topic area, right? Like visual for geometry. Sometimes it might be all three styles equally. Sometimes it might be one in the lead and two others coming up behind. If your research is on specific elements of whale song, auditory is probably the best way to do that, right? If you're in math and you've discovered a new formula, a new math equation, visual is probably the best way to convey that, right? If you've just invented a new fabric, right? Your research has discovered a new way to do something with fabric, pass around samples, right? Kinesthetic becomes a key there. So feel free to explore that and find out what could work best for your audience, resonating with them, right? And that is the key information that I wanted to share with you. So prepare your content using the best suited learning style for whatever your topic is. With that, adult learning theory, learning styles, that's the content that I have to share with you. I'd love to know, are there any questions on either of these or anything else with presentations for that matter that I can answer for you? I want to make sure we have time to do that before 1 o'clock hits. So Jennifer, Naomi, Lisa, anything I can answer for you? All right. Well, if not, first off, that's not a once and done question. If you think of something later on, I'm very happy to answer questions as they might come up for you. You can reach me through the good folks on the screen with the beautiful backgrounds there, and reach out to that team. They can put you in contact with me. And I wish you all great success in crafting your presentations, in presenting them. I hope you are optimistic and see yourselves going to the state and bringing Grad Slam home for UCLA. It has happened before. It will happen again. And just all the best success in all of that. I'll hand it back to Ivy.
Thank you so much, David, for your presentation today, and thank you all for attending and giving some of your time for today. And we will send a follow-up email with the link to the presenter's guide and the PowerPoint from today, as well as the link to the recording. But again, thank you so much for attending. And if you have any questions, please send us an email at askgrad@grad.ucla.edu with subject line Grad Slam. Otherwise, have a good rest of your Wednesday, and we hope to see you next week during small group coaching sessions. Thank you all.